The last light vanished behind the Euphrates. The wind carried the smell of wet reeds, smoke, sweat, and river mud, and somewhere high above the sleeping rooftops, the moon god was already watching. 5,000 years ago, in the ancient city of the night did not sleep, it only watched, and in the shadows of the great ziggurat, the city seemed to whisper its secrets to the moon. This is the night of around 2100 BC, a time when clay tablets stayed warm in scribes' hands, barley beer stayed dark in its jars, and the city, as far as we can imagine, never really closed its eyes. This is a narrative reconstruction, not a literal transcript of history. We weave archaeological facts with imagined voices to bring the night of to life. The Euphrates flows dark and heavy, mirroring the last embers of the sun. Reed marshes fold into the horizon, canals twist like veins, and above it all, the stepped tower of the moon god Nanna, the ziggurat, crowned by the first silver of the moon. This is long considered one of the greatest cities of Mesopotamia, a city that flourished under kings such as Ur-Nammu and Shulgi during the third dynasty of Ur, a city where the temple of the moon god Nanna stood at the center of political power, trade, memory, and fear. The streets are built from mud brick, the roofs are flat, the lamps are small, and the gods feel dangerously close. As the sun sinks below the western edge of the world, the city exhales. Workers leave the fields carrying bronze sickles over their shoulders. Dock laborers untie thick reed ropes from grain barges drifting along the canals. Potters wash clay from their forearms. Scribes press the final wedge-shaped symbols into soft tablets before the light disappears entirely. The air cools slowly, not enough to comfort, only enough to remind the city that night has begun. At the western quay, a heavy grain barge scrapes against the dock. Men pull it forward by hand, muscles straining beneath sweat-darkened linen. The river smells thick tonight, muddy and alive. A harvest officer stands aboard the vessel, counting sacks by torchlight. Beside him is a sailor priest from the northern canals, his shaved scalp glistening beneath the fading sky. Their conversation is tense. The officer speaks of new taxes ordered by the palace, more grain for the royal granaries, more labor for irrigation walls, more records, more counting, more control. The sailor priest laughs quietly. The king counts grain because grain is easier to count than hungry people. The officer pretends not to hear him. Below them, workers unload sacks one by one. Barley spills across the dock in little golden avalanches. Each grain catches the torchlight for an instant before vanishing into darkness. The sound is soft, almost peaceful. But in grain is never just grain. It is wages, debt, temple offerings, taxes, power, a promise and a threat at the same time. Nearby, a mother walks home with her young son. Their sandals whisper against baked earth streets, still warm from the day's heat. The child carries a tiny clay animal in one hand. Its ear has broken off. He refuses to throw it away. They pass beneath the enormous shadow of the ziggurat. Even in darkness, it dominates the city. Layer upon layer of mud brick, rising toward the heavens like a mountain built by human hands. Oil lamps flicker along the lower stairways. Priests move like ghosts between pillars. The scent of incense drifts downward through the warm air. The mother pauses, and gently places her hand on the boy's shoulder. She points upward. "The moon god watches us from there," she whispers. The child stares at the great staircase, climbing into darkness. And for one brief moment, something moves near the upper steps. A shape, tall, thin, gone almost instantly. The boy squints. Was it a priest? A goat wandering loose? A spirit from one of the old stories? He cannot tell, but in our story, the city has already seen him, and the night has begun. Far above, the first stars emerge over Mesopotamia. In homes across evening rituals unfold with quiet repetition. Clay ovens glow red. Stew bubbles slowly in blackened pots. Beer jars are opened. Dates are passed from hand to hand. A father repairs a fishing net by lamplight while his daughter falls asleep beside him. An old woman mutters prayers to Nanna beneath her breath as she burns oil before a tiny household shrine. A merchant counts copper rings over and over again, convinced one has gone missing. Life narrows at night. The city becomes smaller, more intimate, more dangerous. Sound travels farther in darkness. A dog barking 3 streets away. The creak of wagon wheels. A baby crying behind thin mud brick walls. Laughter from a beer house near the river. And beneath it all, the constant murmur of water. Breathes through canals. Without them, the city would die. Water moves through narrow channels cut by generations of laborers. It feeds fields of barley beyond the walls. Feeds date palms. Feeds livestock. Feeds the empire itself. And tonight, under the rising moon, the canals shine like polished obsidian. Near the southern district, 2 brothers walk through a crowded market street carrying baskets of fish packed in reeds. The market is closing. Vendors shout final prices. A butcher wipes blood from a bronze knife. A woman selling onions curses at boys trying to steal from her baskets. Smoke rises into the purple sky. The younger brother asks whether the king truly owns all the land now. The older brother shrugs. Kings own what soldiers protect. The younger brother thinks about this quietly. In politics is not distant. It lives in the stomach, in the grain ration, in the tax collector's hand, in whether the canal reaches your field this year or dries before harvest. A trumpet sounds somewhere near the palace district, low, mournful, ancient. Heads turn instinctively. Even after generations, the sound still commands attention. The palace of Ur-Nammu rises not far from the sacred precinct, its walls thick and imposing beneath torchlight. Messengers pass through guarded gates. Donkeys carry sealed jars of oil towards storage rooms. Officials hurry through corridors holding fresh clay tablets against their chests. Records, always records. The empire of survives through writing. Thousands of tablets track grain, labor, livestock, taxes, offerings, births, deaths. Entire lives reduced to wedges pressed into clay. Inside one dim chamber, a young scribe works long after sunset. His fingers ache. He presses symbols carefully, while an older overseer watches nearby. One mistake means starting again. The clay must remain moist. The lines precise. The numbers exact. Outside, people dream beneath the stars. Inside, the empire counts itself. The young scribe pauses briefly to flex his cramped hand. Then he hears something. Footsteps. Not unusual. The palace never truly sleeps. But these steps stop outside the doorway. Silence follows. The scribe looks up. Nothing. Only darkness in the corridor. The overseer does not even notice. Yet for the rest of the night, the young scribe writes more slowly. In another quarter of the city, music rises from a beer house near the docks. A reed flute, a drum, clapping hands. Sailors drank thick barley beer through long reeds to avoid floating husks. Merchants boast about journeys north toward Akkad. A soldier claims he once saw mountains beyond the horizon where snow never melts. No one believes him. Laughter shakes the room. Beer houses in Mesopotamia are loud, crowded, alive. Places where gossip travels faster than official decrees. Tonight, the talk centers on rumors from distant territories. Raids near trade roads. Bandits along canals. A failed harvest farther north. One man insists the gods are angry. Another says the king has simply become greedy. A woman serving beer overhears everything and says nothing. She has learned that silence survives longer than opinions. At the edge of the room sits a traveler wrapped in dusty wool. No one knows where he came from. He drinks slowly, watches carefully, speaks little. Every few moments, he glances toward the temple district, as though waiting. Outside, the moon climbs higher. Silver light spills across rooftops. Cats prowl narrow alleys. Temple fires flicker in the distance. The great ziggurat glows pale against the black sky. It does not look built by humans tonight. It looks eternal. Priests climb its stairways carrying bowls of oil and baskets of offerings. Their shadows stretch impossibly long across the stone. At the summit shrine, incense smoke twists upward toward the stars. The people of believe the gods descend here, that heaven brushes the earth atop this mountain of mud brick, and perhaps, in the minds of those who lived beneath it, that belief felt as real as the river itself. A temple singer begins a hymn to Nanna. Her voice drifts across the city like smoke, slow, haunting, almost hypnotic. Families pause to listen. Even thieves stop moving for a moment. The hymn speaks of cycles, of moons waxing and fading, of kings rising and dying, of rivers flooding and retreating, of humanity surviving only because the gods permit it. The people of understand something modern cities often forget. Civilization is fragile. One failed flood, one broken canal, one invading army, one angry god, and everything disappears into dust. Beyond the city walls, the countryside darkens completely. Fields stretch beneath moonlight. Irrigation channels glimmer faintly. Frogs croak in distant marshes. A shepherd guides goats toward a reed shelter, whispering softly so they remain calm. He hates traveling after dark. Too many stories, too many sounds without owners. Tonight, as he secures the enclosure, he notices movement far off near the canal banks. A lantern, then another, too distant to identify. Travelers? Smugglers? Temple patrols? He watches until the lights disappear. Only then does he retreat inside. Back within the city settles deeper into night. Children sleep on woven mats beside their parents. Oil lamps burn low. Doors are barred with wooden beams. Yet even now, thousands remain awake. Bakers preparing morning bread. Priests keeping sacred fires lit. guards patrolling walls, scribes calculating grain totals, midwives waiting beside laboring mothers, fishermen preparing boats before dawn tides. Ancient cities never truly slept. They drifted in and out of consciousness like living creatures. Near midnight, warm wind moves through the streets carrying distant thunder. People glance uneasily toward the horizon. Storms matter here. Too little rain means famine. Too much water means destruction. Everything depends on balance. At the northern gate, two soldiers argue beside a brazier. One complains about longer patrol shifts. The other says the king fears rebellion in distant territories. Their bronze spearheads catch the firelight. Behind them, the massive city walls loom against the sky. Mud brick, layer after layer, repaired endlessly. Civilization is maintenance. Without constant labor, Ur would collapse back into the earth from which it rose. One soldier spits into the dust. Empires are hungry, he mutters. The other nods silently. Because everyone in Ur understands this truth. The city survives by consuming. Grain from farmers, labor from workers, taxes from merchants, prayers from priests, loyalty from soldiers, and eventually lives from everyone. Hours pass. The moon reaches its highest point. The streets empty further. Even the beer houses quiet down. But somewhere deep within the temple district, hidden behind thick walls and guarded doors, another ritual begins. A priestess kneels before a bowl of oil. Flames flicker across gold jewelry and dark braided hair. She closes her eyes. The room smells of cedar smoke and myrrh. Ancient words fill the silence. Prayers older than memory itself. Outside, the city waits beneath the moon, watching, listening, as if Ur itself knows something is coming, and perhaps it does. Because all great cities sense their own mortality, eventually. The wind rises again. Dust swirls through empty alleys. A loose shutter knocks softly against a wall. And somewhere near the staircase of the ziggurat, the young boy from earlier wakes suddenly from sleep. He sits upright beside his mother, breathing hard. She asks what frightened him. The boy hesitates, then whispers, "There was someone on the stairs." His mother tells him it was only a dream, but far away, atop the moonlit ziggurat, a solitary figure stands motionless against the sky, watching the sleeping city below. And the night of Ur continues. The records of the night. The deepest sounds of Ur were not made by soldiers, not by priests, not by kings. They were made by reeds pressing into clay. Inside the temple complex, long after the fields have emptied and the market fires have dimmed, the real night work begins. This is where the city lives, in clay. Beyond the towering staircase of the ziggurat, beyond incense chambers and sacred courtyards, there are rooms few citizens ever see. Low chambers lit by oil lamps, shelves heavy with tablets, dust layered upon dust, records stacked like sleeping bricks. This is the archive district of the Temple of Nanna. Here, the empire remembers itself. The air is thick with lamp smoke and damp clay. Warm wax drips slowly from bronze lampstands. Tiny insects circle the flames. The walls sweat faintly from the trapped night heat. Rows of tablets dry on wooden racks, thousands of them. Tax records, marriage contracts, grain tallies, labor assignments, livestock inventories, temple offerings, court disputes, funeral lists, debt notices, royal decrees, entire lives reduced to wedges pressed into mud. A senior scribe kneels before a fresh tablet resting upon his lap. His name, in our story, is Ibi-Suin, not a king, not a priest, not a warrior, just a man whose hands hold the memory of a city. His beard is streaked with gray clay dust. His fingers are permanently hardened from decades gripping reed styluses. The joints ache in cold weather. Tonight they ache badly, but he continues writing, because cities like survive only if someone remembers where the grain went. He presses the stylus carefully into wet clay. Each movement, deliberate, measured, controlled. Tiny wedges appear, one by one. The script of empire, cuneiform. The marks look almost abstract to unfamiliar eyes, but to Ibi-Suin, they are alive. Each wedge carries weight. A missing mark could change ownership of a field. A wrong number could starve a family. An altered record could destroy a merchant. Writing in is not decoration. It is power. Beside him sits a younger apprentice, barely 16 years old. His hands tremble slightly whenever the senior scribes watch him. He still makes mistakes, still presses too deeply, still smudges signs, still confuses symbols when tired. Tonight, he is exhausted. But exhaustion means nothing in the archive halls. The city must still be counted. Ibi-Suin lifts another tablet from a basket beside him. A dispute record. Temple official versus merchant. Grain rents unpaid. A common case, at least at first. He squints at the lines while the younger apprentice waits silently nearby. The oil lamp flickers. Shadows move across the walls. The senior scribe reads aloud in a low voice. 3 measures of barley owed to the temple granary under authority of the sacred precinct of Nanna. His voice trails off. Something catches his eye, a tiny scratch near one corner of the tablet, almost invisible, not part of the original text, not natural. His breathing slows. The apprentice notices immediately. Master? Ibi-Suin says nothing. He leans closer, runs his thumb gently across the clay surface. The scratch interrupts a number. 1 wedge altered. 1 measure changed. A small thing. But in small things reshape destinies. The apprentice shifts nervously. Is it damaged? The senior scribe does not answer immediately. At first, he thinks it is accidental. A scrape from storage. A crack from drying. Nothing unusual. Then he studies it longer, and he realizes the mark was deliberate. Someone altered the tablet. Someone changed the record after it was sealed. The room suddenly feels hotter. Outside, distant temple bells ring softly in the night. Ibi-Suin stares at the altered number. 1 extra wedge. Enough to erase debt. Enough to steal grain. Enough to implicate someone innocent. Enough to matter. In modern eyes, it might seem insignificant. But ancient cities balanced themselves on fragile systems of trust, and trust in was written in clay. The apprentice whispers carefully, "Should we report it?" Ibi-Suin still does not answer. Instead, he looks toward the shelves surrounding them. thousands upon thousands of records, the entire city sleeping inside mud tablets. Every harvest, every birth, every debt, every promise. And suddenly he feels something cold move through him. Not fear, recognition, because this is not the first altered tablet he has seen, only the first this month. He places the record carefully beside the lamp. The flame reflects across damp clay like blood on water. The city is changing, he murmurs. The apprentice pretends not to hear, but he hears everything. Outside the archive chamber, footsteps echo faintly through temple corridors. Priests moving between shrines, night attendants carrying oil, messengers from the palace. The temple complex never truly sleeps. Even at midnight, continues recording itself. Ibi Suen closes his eyes briefly, and memories rise like smoke. Flashbacks flicker through his mind. Not literal memories, perhaps. Some inherited, some imagined, some transformed by years of repetition. But in our story, the past does not stay buried. It walks beside the living. He remembers the old battle stories told when he was young. The years before reclaimed supremacy. The chaos after empires fractured. Cities burning beneath foreign kings. Canals abandoned. Fields flooded. Bodies floating through irrigation ditches. He remembers hearing of soldiers marching beneath banners soaked by rain and blood. Spears clashing near city walls. Bronze against bronze. Men screaming prayers to gods who answered no one. Then victory. Rising again beneath powerful rulers. The great kings rebuilding order from collapse. He sees, in his mind, Ur-Nammu, standing atop the ziggurat staircase beneath moonlight. The king raises one hand toward the heavens. Below him, thousands kneel. The king promises order, justice, law, a city rebuilt, not merely by force, but by writing, by rules, by records, by permanence. And from those promises emerges what later generations would call the Code of Ur-Nammu. In our story, the code spreads through like a shadow, not because every citizen reads it, most cannot, but because everyone feels its existence. The idea that justice can be written, measured, recorded, fixed into clay instead of whispered by powerful men in dark rooms. It is revolutionary and terrifying, because once law exists in writing, corruption leaves marks. The senior scribe opens his eyes again. The altered tablet waits beside the lamp. He whispers quietly, "If the tablet is wrong, the city is wrong." The apprentice freezes. Ibi Suen continues, "And the city that is wrong will not survive the night of the gods." The words settle heavily between them. Outside, thunder murmurs far across the plains. The apprentice shifts uneasily. He has grown up hearing stories. Everyone in Mesopotamia has flood myths, divine punishments, cities erased beneath rivers, kings struck down for arrogance. In religion is not distant philosophy. It surrounds everything. The gods live in storms, in failed harvests, in eclipses, in plague, in river floods. And somewhere deep inside himself, the apprentice wonders, what if the old man is right? What if corruption in the records is more than crime? What if it is decay? Ibi Suen stands slowly, knees stiff with age. He carries the altered tablet toward a nearby shelf. His shadow stretches long across the chamber walls. For a moment, the apprentice notices how skeletal the old scribe appears in lamplight, like a figure already halfway transformed into dust. "Master," the apprentice asks quietly, "who would change a temple record?" The older man pauses, then gives the only honest answer possible. "Someone who believes they will never be questioned." Silence returns. Only the scratching of distant styluses echoes faintly through neighboring rooms. Somewhere deeper in the archives, another team of scribes copies tax records by candlelight. A woman catalogs livestock inventories. An elderly accountant calculates grain distribution for canal workers. A temple archivist seals fresh tablets inside clay envelopes. Survives because these people remain awake. Empires are built by armies, but they endure through administration. Ibisuin walks deeper into the archive halls. The apprentice follows carrying an oil lamp. Together they pass endless shelves. Some tablets are ancient already, older than either of them. Records from dead rulers, dead merchants, dead farmers, yet their names survive, immortalized in clay. The senior scribe stops before a damaged shelf partially collapsed from old floodwater. He reaches carefully toward one cracked tablet. "This one," he says softly, "survived the great flood years." The apprentice leans closer. The old clay is brittle and darkened. Ibisuin remembers the story attached to it, or perhaps he only imagines remembering. In our narrative, truth and memory blur together. A young scribe, decades earlier, tried saving archive tablets during sudden canal flooding. Water burst through lower corridors. Storage rooms collapsed. Clay dissolved into mud. The scribe gathered as many records as possible against his chest and attempted to flee, but the water rose too fast. They later found his body near the canal gate, still clutching a tablet, as though preserving the record mattered more than preserving himself. The apprentice listens silently. Outside, wind rattles wooden shutters somewhere in the temple district. The city sounds distant from inside these archive halls, muted, dreamlike. Ibisuin studies the ancient flood tablet. "The city remembers disasters," he says quietly, "but memory fades faster than ambition." He returns the tablet carefully to its shelf, then continues walking. As they move deeper into the archive corridors, the atmosphere changes subtly. The rooms become older, cooler, less maintained. Dust thickens. Some records here have not been opened for generations. The apprentice feels uneasy. Why keep tablets no one reads anymore? Ibisuin smiles faintly. Because forgetting is dangerous. The answer lingers in darkness. Far above them, atop the ziggurat, priests continue midnight rituals beneath the moon. Incense rises into black skies. Bronze bells chime softly. Sacred hymns drift across rooftops. But down here, another priesthood serves the city. The priesthood of memory. The archive chambers contain no idols, only records. Yet these records shape lives as surely as divine commands. A missing contract can erase inheritance. A rewritten debt can enslave generations. A falsified grain tally can trigger famine. Clay decides reality. The apprentice suddenly understands why the old scribe seemed frightened by the altered tablet, not because of one stolen grain payment, but because the system itself depends on trust, and trust, once cracked, spreads damage slowly like water beneath foundations. They return toward the main chamber. Other scribes barely glance up as they pass. Everyone is tired. Eyes red from smoke. Hands cramped from writing. Yet the work continues relentlessly. Near one doorway, a young woman recites inventory numbers aloud, while another records them onto fresh clay. 37 jars of sesame oil, 14 sheep, 6 bronze tools, 2 damaged plows. Numbers become immortality. Outside the archives, the night deepens. The moon hangs high above The streets are quieter now. Only patrols, late workers, stray dogs, temple servants. Near the base of the ziggurat, the same young boy from earlier stands alone beside the stairway shadows. He should be asleep, but curiosity has drawn him back. The great temple towers above him, impossibly large. Moonlight paints silver across its edges. The boy stares upward, and once again he thinks he sees movement near the upper terraces. A figure watching the city. Still, silent, the boy shivers. At that same moment, Ibisuen emerges from the archive entrance, carrying the altered tablet beneath one arm. Cool night air brushes against his face. For the first time in hours, he looks upward toward the moon and notices the child standing near the stairs. Their eyes meet briefly. Neither speaks. The boy sees only an exhausted old man covered in clay dust. The scribe sees only a child, frightened by shadows. Yet something passes silently between them, an understanding, perhaps, that the city is uneasy tonight. The wind moves through the temple courtyard, carrying distant river smells. Water, mud, smoke. Reads. Ibisuen glances toward the towering ziggurat, toward the shrine of Nanna above, then back toward the tablet in his hands, a single altered wedge, so small, yet suddenly it feels heavier than stone. Because deep inside himself, the senior scribe senses something terrible, not immediate disaster, not fire, not invasion, something slower, rot. The quiet corruption that begins in records before it spreads into everything else. He remembers the words spoken by old teachers decades earlier. When the tablets lie, the kingdom dies. At the time, he thought it poetic exaggeration. Tonight, it feels like prophecy. Behind him, the apprentice steps into the courtyard, carrying the lamp. "Master," he asks softly, "what happens now?" Ibisuen looks toward the sleeping city, toward rooftops glowing beneath moonlight, toward canals winding through darkness, toward homes filled with dreams and debts and secrets. Then he answers, "Now the night begins reading us back." The boy near the stairway hears only the wind, but somewhere above them, hidden in darkness, atop the great ziggurat, a solitary figure remains motionless beneath the moon, watching, listening, as if the city itself is waiting to see what the scribes will discover before dawn. And the night of continues. The brewers and the night watch. Across the city, near the canals where river mist curls between mud brick walls, a tavern breathes in the darkness. Not a palace hall, not a temple chamber, not a noble courtyard filled with musicians and incense. Just a low room of smoke, sweat, and warm clay, a place where tired people come to forget the weight of the city for a few hours before dawn. The tavern crouches between two narrow alleys close to the Western Canal District. Its roof sags slightly. Its doorway hangs crooked. One cracked oil lamp burns outside beside a reed curtain stained dark with years of smoke. Yet even at this hour, people gather here. Because ancient cities always needed places where truth could loosen itself from tired mouths. Inside, the air is thick with heat. Barley beer flows dark and heavy through large clay jars lined against the rear wall. The beer is cloudy, nutty, sour, alive with floating grain. Long reed straws protrude from communal vessels so drinkers can sip beneath the surface chaff, a plausible reconstruction of how beer may have been consumed in this age. The room smells of yeast, damp reeds, onions, sweat, and river mud carried in on sandals. A fire crackles low near the back. Its light flickers across tired faces. Workers sit shoulder to shoulder on rough wooden benches. Former soldiers, canal diggers, bakers, night guards, dock laborers, men whose bodies ache before they even reach old age. Some speak softly. Others simply drink in silence. Outside, the empire glitters beneath moonlight. Inside, the empire coughs, sweats, and limps. A brewer named Lugal Eden works behind the vats. He is broad-shouldered and middle-aged, his forearms scarred from years lifting heavy jars over open fires. His tunic clings to his skin with sweat. He stirs a massive fermentation vat, slowly with a wooden paddle taller than a child. The motion is rhythmic, circular, endless. The barley smell rises thick into the air. He knows this rhythm better than prayer. His father brewed before him, and his father before that. Beer in is not luxury. It is daily life. Workers are often paid partly in grain and beer rations. Priests receive it. Laborers depend on it. Travelers seek it after weeks on dusty roads. Safer than stagnant water. More filling than thin soup. Liquid bread for a civilization built beside uncertain rivers. Lugal Eden dips a clay cup into one vat and tastes carefully. Too sour. He spits into the ash pit beside the fire. The serving woman notices immediately. Her name is Ninsaga in our story. She carries jars between tables with practiced ease, balancing them against one hip while weaving through crowded benches. Her eyes are sharp. Nothing escapes them. "You've tasted that barrel 3 times tonight," she says quietly. The brewer wipes foam from his beard. It keeps changing. She glances toward the rear storage room. "The same one?" He nods slowly. The serving woman says nothing at first, but unease moves behind her eyes, because she has noticed it too. One barrel keeps foaming strangely, not spoiled exactly, not poisoned, just wrong. Sometimes foam spills over the rim, even untouched. Sometimes bubbles rise hours after the fires cool. Once, she swears she heard something moving inside the sealed jar late at night. Of course she knows that is impossible. Fermentation breathes. That is normal. Yet still, she dislikes walking near that barrel alone. Across the room, laughter erupts from a table near the doorway. 3 former soldiers sit drinking heavily beside a basket of onions and dried fish. Their bronze helmets are long gone. Their shields sold years earlier. But war still clings to them. One man bears a crooked nose, broken by an axe handle. Another limps badly whenever he stands. The third has burn scars creeping up one side of his neck. Their names no longer matter much outside this tavern. The Empire forgets soldiers quickly after peace arrives. The limping veteran pounds his cup against the table. You know what the priests never tell people, he slurs. The others grin. They never tell people the gods smell fear. The serving woman rolls her eyes while refilling cups. You smell worse than fear. The table erupts with rough laughter, but the veteran continues. No, listen. He leans closer. There was a well east of Lagash during the campaign years. Water tasted bitter. Crops died black in the fields nearby. One of the others groans. Not this story again. But the tavern has quieted slightly now. People listen despite themselves. Ancient nights were full of stories because darkness demanded explanations. The veteran lowers his voice. Men drank from that well and woke screaming. Said they saw a figure standing beside the water. A ghost? Someone asks mockingly. The veteran shakes his head slowly. No, worse. He points upward. A servant of the gods. The room grows quieter. Even jokes become softer when gods enter conversation. The veteran continues. He wore the horned crown of divinity, eyes like wet clay, hands covered in black water. The brewer snorts dismissively from the back room. You drank spoiled beer and blamed the moon. More laughter. Yet the serving woman does not laugh, because in her dreams lately, she has seen something disturbingly similar. A figure standing beside a dark well beneath moonlight, tall, motionless, wearing a horned cap, watching her, not speaking, just waiting. Dreams mattered deeply in Mesopotamia. People sought meaning in them constantly. Priests interpreted them. Kings feared them. Families whispered about them over morning meals. Dreams could be warnings, messages, omens, or simply anxious minds struggling through darkness. But tonight, Nin's saga cannot shake the image. She glances again toward the strange beer barrel. Foam slides slowly over its rim. Outside, wind moves through canal reeds with a dry whispering sound. The city feels restless tonight. Near the tavern doorway, two canal workers argue quietly over unpaid grain rations. One insists temple officials skim from labor distributions. The other warns him to lower his voice. Walls have ears, he mutters. The first worker laughs bitterly. Then let the walls carry my hunger to the king. No one responds, because everyone here understands. Ur is wealthy, powerful, magnificent, yet wealth flows unevenly through cities. The ziggurat rises higher each year. Granaries grow fuller. Records multiply. Still, workers count bread carefully at home. Still, fathers worry through sleepless nights. Still, hunger waits at the edges of every household. Near midnight, the tavern door opens again. A gust of cool canal air sweeps inside. Conversation dims slightly. A man enters wearing the dark cloak of the night watch, captain of one of the canal patrol routes. His name is Anatum in our story. Tall, broad-shouldered, gray beginning at his temples. His face carries the exhaustion of someone who has spent years watching danger arrive before others notice it. He removes his spear from his shoulder and leans it beside the wall. The serving woman nods respectfully. You're late tonight. Trouble at the northern gate. Bandits? Officials. that earns tired laughter from nearby tables. Enatum accepts a beer jar and drinks deeply. The bitterness grounds him. He prefers taverns like this because palace halls suffocate him. Too many polished lies. Too much incense hiding decay. Here, people speak honestly when tired enough, at least sometimes. The former watch captain sits alone near the rear wall beneath a smoke-darkened carving of river reeds. Years ago, he served as a temple guard, trusted, respected, until one night changed everything. No one knows the full story. Only fragments survive in whispers. He disobeyed an order, refused someone powerful, protected someone he should not have protected. Afterward, he lost his temple rank, not imprisoned, not executed, simply removed, which in some ways felt worse. Now he patrols canal streets and warehouse districts, while younger men wear ceremonial armor near the sacred precinct. He does not complain. But bitterness settles deep in him like river silt. The serving woman sits briefly across from him while the tavern quiets. "You look troubled," she says. "I always look troubled. Tonight, more than usual." Enatum studies his drink, then finally speaks. The city feels wrong. She glances up sharply. Wrong how? He hesitates. Night watch captains survive by trusting instincts, and tonight his instincts feel like stretched rope ready to snap. Too many small things, such as broken locks, missing grain, strange patrol routes ordered by priests, men watching places they should not watch. The serving woman listens carefully, then lowers her voice. The brewer says one barrel keeps foaming by itself. Enatum stares at her for a moment, then laughs unexpectedly, not mocking, relieved. "Good," he says quietly. She frowns. "Good? If even the beer is acting strange, perhaps I'm not losing my mind alone." Outside, thunder rolls again somewhere far beyond the marshes. The tavern grows quieter as exhaustion settles over its patrons. One by one, workers leave for home. Sandals scrape softly against dirt streets. Doors creak open and shut outside. The brewer seals another vat for morning. The foam barrel bubbles quietly behind him. Near the doorway, the former soldiers drift into uneasy silence. One stares into his drink, as though expecting memories to rise from it, and perhaps they do. War never truly leaves people, especially in cities built by conquest. Enatum finally rises to continue his patrol. He straps his spear across his back again. The serving woman catches his arm before he leaves. "Be careful tonight." The watch captain pauses, then nods once. Outside, the city has entered its deepest hours. Moonlight spills across empty streets. Canals gleam black between stone embankments. Palm trees sway slowly in warm wind. Somewhere distant, temple bells sound once, then silence again. Enatum walks with measured steps through narrow alleys and grain districts. His sandals crunch softly across scattered husks and dry earth. He knows these streets intimately, where thieves hide, which walls crumble, which warehouse owners bribe inspectors, which patrol routes priests avoid after midnight. Cities reveal themselves differently at night. Daytime belongs to authority. Night belongs to truth. A dog darts across the street, carrying stolen scraps. Two lovers whisper beneath a stairway. An old woman burns incense before a tiny household shrine. Life continues quietly beneath the empire's sleeping face. The watch captain passes beneath towering granary walls near the temple district. Massive mud brick structures filled with barley reserves, food for workers, taxes for priests, power for kings. Everything eventually becomes grain in Ur. As Anatom rounds one corner, he stops immediately. Something is wrong. One granary gate hangs slightly open. The seal is broken. His pulse sharpens instantly. He approaches slowly. The clay seal lies shattered on the ground. Fresh. Tonight, fresh. Moonlight catches scattered barley leading into a narrow alley nearby. A trail. Deliberate or careless, he cannot yet tell. Anatom grips his spear tightly and follows the grain, one step at a time. The alley narrows between tall mud brick walls, dark, silent. Only distant water sounds echo from nearby canals. The trail continues deeper, then stops abruptly. A shadow moves. The watch captain lunges instantly, slamming a man against the wall before he can flee. The stranger gasps in terror, thin, starving, middle-aged, not a hardened criminal, not a gang thief, just desperate. A sack of stolen grain spills open beside him. Barley scatters across the dirt like tiny pale bones. Anatom presses the spear shaft against the man's chest. Who sent you? The thief trembles violently. No one. Liar. I swear. Breaking a temple seal means death. The man's composure collapses. Tears fill his eyes. My children are hungry. The watch captain hesitates slightly because he believes him. This is not greed. This is survival. The thief clutches Anatom's arm desperately. They told me the guards would look away. Who told you? Silence. Then finally, men from the temple stores. Anatom freezes. The thief continues quickly. They said to test the walls, test the patrols. See how easy it was. Cold unease crawls through the captain's chest. Why? I don't know. You're lying. I swear before Nanna, I don't know. The thief collapses to his knees, sobbing. Anatom steps back slowly, thoughts racing. Temple officials using starving men to test security? Corrupt storage schemes? Smuggling? Or something larger? The watch captain suddenly remembers old lessons from his years inside temple service. Most danger does not enter cities from outside. It grows quietly within them. Wind moves through the alley carrying distant incense from the ziggurat. The thief kneels shaking beside spilled grain. Anatom could arrest him immediately, turn him over to temple authorities, pretend ignorance, protect himself. That would be safest. Instead, he asks quietly, how many others? The thief looks up fearfully. 3 that I know. Names. The man hesitates. Fear wars visibly against desperation. Finally, he whispers them. Warehouse workers. Low-level officials. A scribe. Anatom feels the night tighten around him, because suddenly separate pieces begin aligning in his mind. Missing grain. Broken seals. Strange patrol changes. Nervous officials. Whispers in taverns. And now this. The city is rotting somewhere beneath its surface. The captain closes his eyes briefly. Years ago, he disobeyed an order because he believed protecting truth mattered more than obeying power. It destroyed his career. Tonight, the same choice stands before him again. If he speaks openly, he accuses temple authorities. If he stays silent, corruption spreads deeper. The thief watches him desperately, waiting. The city itself seems to wait. Even the wind stills briefly between the alley walls. At last, Inatum lowers his spear. Take the grain. The thief stares in disbelief. What? Go home before I change my mind. You'll let me leave? For tonight. The man gathers spilled barley frantically with trembling hands. Before fleeing, he pauses. There's something else, he whispers. Inatum stiffens. What? The men who paid us. His voice lowers further. They said the city would soon belong to different gods. Fear prickles across the watch captain's skin. What does that mean? But the thief already backs away into darkness. I don't know. Then he disappears down the alley. Inatum stands alone beneath moonlight. The broken granary seal rests near his feet. The city feels impossibly quiet now, as though itself is holding breath. Above him, the ziggurat rises pale against the stars, eternal, watching. The captain looks toward it with growing dread, because he realizes something terrible. The danger facing may not come from invaders beyond the walls. It may already sit inside the sacred heart of the city itself. For one long moment, Inatum considers marching directly to temple authorities, demanding answers, naming names, exposing corruption immediately. But another memory stops him cold. The last time he challenged powerful men, he lost everything. And this time, the stakes feel larger. The captain places one hand against his chest. His heartbeat pounds hard beneath his palm. For one night in our story, he holds the truth inside himself, and the city feels his hesitation like a held breath. Far away, inside the tavern by the canals, the strange beer barrel foams quietly in darkness, as though something beneath the city has begun waking. And the night of continues. The households on the edge, beyond the towering ziggurat, beyond the temple archives, beyond the granaries and palace courtyards where officials count grain beneath flickering lamps, the city changes. The streets narrow. The walls lean closer together. Voices soften behind shuttered doors. And here, in the sleeping quarters beyond the sacred district, the night becomes private. Not quieter. Never truly quieter. Only closer. In the houses beyond the temple walls, the night is heavy with listening. Families sleep on woven reed mats beneath flat mud brick roofs, still warm from the day's heat. Clay lamps burn low beside tiny household shrines. Water jars cool slowly in the darkness. Dogs curl beneath tables. Babies stir in restless sleep. Above the rooftops, the moon hangs pale over watching every courtyard, watching every secret. In one large household near the eastern processional road, servants move silently through dim corridors, carrying bowls of water and folded linen. The house belongs to a temple administrator named Nanna in our story. A careful man, a wealthy man, a man who smiles too easily when speaking to priests. His home reflects his position, not luxurious like a royal residence, but spacious enough to command respect. The walls are plastered smooth and painted with faded geometric designs. Bronze lamps hang from wooden beams. Carved stools line the central room. Clay storage jars crowd the pantry chambers. Everything here smells faintly of cedar oil, incense, and sealed grain. Tonight, the household remains awake later than usual, because an important guest has arrived from the northern trade routes, a merchant from Mari. His caravan entered shortly before sunset, carrying wool, timber, and sealed crates, guarded more carefully than gold. Now he sits cross-legged across from Nanna inside a private chamber lit by 3 low-oil lamps. Between them rests a polished table of imported wood. Wine dark as blood fills shallow cups. Outside the room, behind a partially closed doorway, a servant woman pauses silently, listening. Her name, in our story, is Geme Sin. She was born far south, near the marsh villages, sold young during famine years, brought north into temple service before eventually entering Nanna's household. She has learned survival through silence. Servants in powerful homes become invisible if they wish to live long enough. Tonight, she carries a water vessel against her hip, but she stops moving when she hears certain words drift through the doorway. The lapis shipment must arrive unseen. The merchant's voice is low and cautious. Gemesin stiffens slightly. Lapis lazuli, blue stone from distant eastern mountains. Precious, rare, expensive enough to reshape alliances. She leans subtly closer. Inside the chamber, Nanna speaks carefully. The temple inspectors already count every incoming caravan. Then they must count incorrectly. A pause. The merchant lowers his cup. The stone is promised elsewhere. To whom? Men who dislike palace oversight. Silence follows. Heavy silence. The servant woman feels her pulse quicken, because in nothing dangerous is spoken directly. Not rebellion, not theft, not conspiracy. Everything hides behind implication. The merchant continues quietly. The king grows stronger each year. Taxes rise. Temples watch trade more closely. Some cities are beginning to resent it. Nanna says nothing immediately. Then, careful, even walls serve listeners. The servant woman steps back instinctively from the doorway, heart racing. Inside, cups scrape softly against wood. The merchant speaks again, and the statue? Another silence, longer this time. Jemison hears Nanna exhale slowly. The foot cracked yesterday. The priests claim it was heat damage. And what do they truly believe? The administrator's voice lowers almost to a whisper. They believe omens no longer arrive gently. The servant woman closes her eyes briefly, because she has heard the rumors already. The king's statue in the ziggurat courtyard, its stone foot split by a long fracture. Some call it meaningless. Others whisper that statues crack before kingdoms do. Ancient cities breathed omens constantly. A dying sheep, an eclipse, a malformed child, a broken idol. Everything carried possible meaning, especially in times when people already feared change. Geme Sin moves silently away from the chamber before she is discovered listening. Yet the conversation clings to her thoughts like smoke. She passes through darkened hallways toward the servant quarters. Other household workers already sleep curled beneath thin blankets. Someone snores softly. Someone mutters in dreams. The servant woman sits alone beside a small storage alcove. Her hands tremble faintly. She has lived long enough inside powerful homes to recognize danger before it fully arrives. Priests speaking in guarded voices. Merchants hiding cargo. officials whispering about omens. These things rarely end peacefully. Outside, wind brushes softly across rooftop reeds. Faraway temple bells ring once. Then silence. Jeme Sin lowers her head. Fear presses heavily against her chest tonight. Not dramatic fear. Not sudden terror. Something slower. The fear of someone trapped near forces larger than herself. She remembers other nights. A priest whose smile vanished after displeasing higher officials. A scribe forced to destroy tablets because the records embarrassed important men. Workers disappearing quietly after asking wrong questions. Cities like survive through order, but order demands sacrifice, often from people least able to resist it. The servant woman glances toward the household shrine near the rear wall. A proper temple carving stands there. The moon, symbol of Nanna. Tiny offering bowls. Burned incense sticks. Official gods. Official prayers. Yet tonight, those feel distant to her. So instead, she reaches into a hidden fold beneath her sleeping mat and removes a tiny cloth bundle. Inside rests only a few grains of barley and a small shell from southern marshlands. Objects from childhood, from older beliefs, from places temple priests dismiss as primitive. Quietly, carefully, she places the grain into a cracked corner of the room, adds a single drop of water, then whispers words in a language not spoken inside temple courts. Ancient marsh prayers, passed from mother to daughter, not against the gods of simply older than them. The room remains still. Only lamp smoke curls slowly upward. For a moment, the servant woman feels calmer. Then a voice behind her speaks sharply. "What are you doing?" She freezes instantly. A wandering priest stands near the doorway, thin, tall, wrapped in layered wool robes, dusty from travel. His shaved scalp gleams in lamplight. Temple priests often moved between households at night, performing blessings, collecting offerings, interpreting dreams. This one watches her with cold suspicion. His gaze falls immediately toward the hidden grain, toward the water, toward the whispered ritual. The servant woman lowers her eyes quickly. It is nothing, Holy One. Nothing does not require secrecy. Other servants begin stirring awake nearby. Fear spreads through the room. The priest steps closer. That language is not temple speech. No, Holy One. Then whose speech is it? She hesitates too long. The priest's expression hardens. You invoke spirits outside proper rites? No. You lie. Voices rise from adjoining rooms as household members awaken. Sandals scrape floors. Doors open. Within moments, Nanna himself arrives, wrapped in a dark sleeping robe. The merchant from Mari follows behind him. The administrator surveys the scene instantly. The frightened servant, the wandering priest, the hidden offering. His jaw tightens. What happened? The priest points toward the grain. She performs forbidden rites within your household. Gemesin drops to her knees immediately. It was only a prayer for protection. The priest's voice sharpens. Protection from whom? The gods of No. The room feels suddenly smaller, hotter. Servants stare downward in terrified silence, because everyone understands the danger here. Religious accusations in Mesopotamia were never merely spiritual. They threatened social order itself. The wandering priest steps toward the administrator. Your household risks impurity. Nanna studies the servant woman carefully. He notices her trembling hands, her exhausted face, and perhaps something human briefly survives inside him. Because he sighs instead of shouting. She is frightened, he says quietly. The priest frowns. Fear breeds disobedience. Fear also breeds foolish rituals. The merchant from Mari watches silently from the doorway, eyes calculating, always calculating. The priest folds his arms. She must be punished. Gemison bows lower until her forehead touches the floor. I meant no offense. The administrator remains silent for several moments. Outside, thunder murmurs again across distant plains. Finally, Nanna speaks. Tomorrow. The priest looks displeased. She should answer immediately. Tomorrow, the administrator repeats more firmly. The room stills, because even priests measure their authority carefully inside influential homes. The wandering priest exhales slowly through his nose, then nods once. For tonight, the household remains under observation. The servant woman almost collapses with relief, not safety, only postponement. But in ancient cities, survival often arrived one night at a time. The priest leaves without another word. His sandals fade into corridor darkness. Only then do servants breathe again. Nanna looks down at Gemison. You are fortunate. Yes, my lord. Do not mistake mercy for blindness. She lowers her eyes. I understand. But inside herself, she wonders if anyone truly understands the forces moving through tonight. The administrator dismisses everyone back to sleep. Yet long after lamps dim again, no one in the servant quarters truly rests. Fear lingers in the walls. Outside the temple quarter, beyond wealthier districts and sacred courtyards, another traveler lies awake beneath unfamiliar ceilings. A merchant from Umma. His name is Dagon Ili in our story. He rents a cramped room above a pottery workshop near the southern markets. The mattress smells of dust and old straw. The walls leak warm night air. Somewhere nearby, a baby cries endlessly. He has traveled for weeks, across canals, across floodplains, past checkpoints and tax collectors. His donkey nearly died near the marsh roads. Bandits shadowed his caravan for 2 days north of Lagash. One servant fled with silver halfway through the journey. Yet none of those troubles unsettle him as much as itself, because feels watchful, not openly hostile, just aware. The merchant sits beside a dim lamp, studying his travel tablets. Clay records wrapped carefully in cloth, trade permits, debt tallies, cargo inventories, legal identity preserved in mud. Without tablets, merchants become vulnerable to suspicion immediately, and suspicion in great cities spreads quickly. Dagon Ili wipes sweat from his brow. He has heard stories about since childhood. Strict laws, powerful priests, meticulous scribes, harsh punishments, a city where records matter more than intentions. Tonight, new rumors drift through the markets, whispers of a vanished priestess. Some claim she was taken by the netherworld after insulting the moon god. Others say temple officials silenced her for seeing something forbidden. No one agrees. Yet everyone repeats the story carefully, as though afraid the city itself might overhear. The merchant drinks from a small water jar, warm, stale. Outside, market district noises continue faintly, despite the hour. Night traders, dock workers, patrol guards. Ur never truly sleeps. Dagon Ili studies one particular tablet uneasily. His identification seal. There is a problem with it. A dangerous problem. His father named him after a regional deity honored in parts of southern Mesopotamia. But political tensions between cities shift constantly. In Ur, certain pronunciations of that name sound dangerously similar to names associated with old rebellions. One accent difference. One careless reading. And devotion becomes treason. Ridiculous, perhaps. Yet ancient bureaucracy thrived on dangerous ambiguities. He experienced it already, earlier tonight. At the night market registration booth, temple scribes inspected incoming merchant permits beneath torchlight. Lines stretched through the square. Donkeys brayed impatiently. Guards watched everyone carefully. When Dagon Ili handed over his identification tablet, the young scribe examining it suddenly paused, eyes narrowing. The merchant felt cold instantly. The scribe reread the inscription, then glanced upward slowly. This name. Dagon Ili forced himself calm. It is my father's dedication name. The scribe continued staring. Another official leaned closer. For several terrible seconds, neither spoke. Around them, market sounds seemed to fade, because the merchant understood something horrifying about powerful cities. Sometimes survival depends entirely on how strangers interpret symbols. Finally, the second official asked quietly, "Is this written for the god or the rebel?" Sweat rolled down Daganali's spine. The god. The scribe hesitated. In another city, another political climate, perhaps the answer would not matter. But tonight, in Ur, uncertainty feels dangerous. The merchant notices nearby guards, watching now, hands resting near spear shafts. He imagines prison cells, confiscated goods, interrogation chambers beneath temple courts, all from one uncertain name. The scribe turns the tablet again beneath torchlight, examining every wedge carefully. At last, after agonizing silence, he presses an official stamp into fresh clay beside the seal. Approved, but not trusted. Your movements will be observed while in Ur, the official says quietly. Dagon Ili bows gratefully, despite the humiliation. Of course. The scribe returns the tablet. Yet even then, suspicion lingers in his eyes. The merchant leaves quickly before minds change. Now, hours later, in his rented room, he still feels shaken because he realizes how fragile identity becomes inside vast systems of power. One mark, one name, one interpretation, and entire lives shift. Outside his narrow window, the moon shines across distant rooftops. He hears temple chants drifting faintly from the sacred district. The city breathes beneath darkness, a place of worship, trade, administration, fear, a place where everyone watches everyone else. Back inside Nanna's household, the servant woman still kneels awake beside the hidden grain offering. Most others have fallen asleep again, but she cannot. The wandering priest's accusation echoes in her mind. So do the merchants' whispered conversations about hidden shipments and cracked statues. The city feels divided tonight, like clay drying unevenly before breaking. She closes her eyes and remembers childhood marshes far south of Ur. Open skies, reed boats, older songs. Before temple walls, before rules written by men she would never meet. A tear slips quietly down her cheek, not because she believes herself doomed, but because she senses something changing around her, something vast. Outside, wind moves through the streets carrying river smells and distant smoke. Somewhere nearby, a patrol captain walks silently past shuttered homes, carrying truths too dangerous to speak openly. Elsewhere, scribes study altered tablets beneath failing lamps. In taverns, workers whisper about corruption. In temple chambers, priests debate omens. In market rooms, strangers pray their names will not condemn them. The city at night is not merely a place of work and worship. It is a place of secrets, of suspicion, of stories no one dares finish aloud. And above all of it, the moon hangs silently over watching households drift uneasily toward dawn, watching servants whisper forbidden prayers, watching merchants clutch uncertain tablets, watching officials bury dangerous truths beneath ritual and law. The great city appears eternal beneath moonlight, yet beneath its mud-brick walls, fear already moves like water through unseen cracks. And the night of continues. The rituals of the night. By the deepest hours of night, belongs less to merchants and laborers, and more to the gods. The taverns quiet, the markets thin. Even the patrol guards begin speaking softer beneath the moon. But atop the sacred terraces of the ziggurat, the city remains awake, because while ordinary people sleep, priests search the darkness for signs. The great ziggurat of Nanna rises above like a mountain shaped by human fear. Layer upon layer of mud brick climbs toward the heavens, wide staircases cut upward through shadow. Torchlight flickers along the lower terraces where temple servants move like drifting spirits. From below, the structure seems eternal, but up close, the ziggurat reveals its age. Bricks crack beneath centuries of heat. Bitumen mortar softens in summer humidity. Wind grinds dust into every crevice. Even sacred things decay slowly. Tonight, on one of the lower terraces beneath the moonlit shrine, a small rite is being held. Not a public ceremony, not a royal festival, no musicians, no gathered crowds, only priests, scribes, and silence. The terrace smells of incense smoke, wet clay, and spilled beer. Bronze oil lamps burn in shallow niches along the walls, their flames bending gently in the warm night wind. At the center of the terrace rests a broad stone basin filled with dark water. Around it kneel several priests in long wool robes. Their heads are partly shaven in temple fashion, their hands stained with oil and ash. Behind them stand scribes carrying fresh clay tablets and sharpened reed styluses, ready to record what the gods reveal, or perhaps ready to record only what powerful men allow the gods to reveal. The oldest priest among them is named Enmen-Dara in our story, thin, sharp-eyed, wrapped in layered white robes despite the heat. He has spent decades interpreting omens, the flight of birds, the shapes of animal livers, the movement of stars, the behavior of storms, the dreams of nobles, the patterns of spilled oil. In Mesopotamia, nothing is merely random. Everything means something if the gods wish it to. Beside him kneels a younger priest named Lu-Shera, barely 20 years old, still uncertain where faith ends and fear begins. His hands tremble slightly whenever he performs rites under the senior priest's gaze. Tonight, he hides it carefully. A temple attendant steps forward carrying 2 vessels, one filled with barley grain, the other with thick, dark beer. Inmendara raises both hands toward the moon above. His voice rises low and rhythmic across the terrace, a prayer to Nanna, Lord of the Moon, Watcher of Kings, Guardian of Cycles, Keeper of Divine Order. The younger priests echo the words softly. The city below lies almost silent now. Only distant dogs barking, canal water moving, occasional wagon wheels far away in the trade quarter. Listens. The old priest lowers his hands, then nods once. The attendants begin pouring. Barley slides first into the basin, tiny pale grains vanishing beneath black water. Then comes the beer. Dark liquid spirals slowly downward through the basin. Foam blossoms across the surface. Ripples spread outward in widening circles. The priests lean closer immediately, watching, studying, interpreting. This is a dramatized reconstruction inspired by known Mesopotamian omen traditions. Ancient priests searched constantly for patterns through ritual observation. Nothing was too small for divine meaning. The basin's surface shifts beneath moonlight. Foam gathers strangely near one edge. Tiny bubbles rise and burst. Grain circles slowly in spiraling currents. A scribe begins recording observations onto fresh clay. Foam drifted eastward. Ripples formed in uneven intervals. Bubbles gathered beneath the northern rim, to modern eyes, perhaps meaningless. But for the priests of the universe speaks through patterns, and civilization survives by listening carefully enough. The younger priest, Lushera, stares into the basin intensely. His breathing slows. Something about the movement unsettles him. The foam gathers suddenly near the center, not randomly, purposefully. His eyes widen. For one terrible moment, he sees a shape emerge, a hand, not literal, not fully formed, just the unmistakable outline of fingers closing inward around the reflection of the city lights beyond the basin, a hand grasping itself. Lushara recoils sharply. The nearest scribe looks up. "What did you see?" The young priest hesitates, his mouth dry, then whispers, "A hand." The older priest immediately turns. "What kind of hand?" Lushera stares at the swirling foam, already changing shape again, closing, grasping, consuming. A hand around the city. Silence spreads across the terrace. Even the wind seems to pause. Several younger scribes exchange nervous glances, because omens involving grasping hands are dangerous symbols. Seizure, conquest, divine punishment. Enmendara steps toward the basin, slowly. His lined face reveals nothing. He studies the water carefully. Then, without warning, he reaches down and smooths the surface with one broad motion of his sleeve. The foam dissolves instantly. The image disappears. Only ripples remain. The young priest stares in disbelief. "But I saw." "The foam means nothing," the senior priest interrupts coldly. Lushera falls silent. The older man's eyes sharpen. "The city is written in tablets," and Mendara says quietly, "not in frightened imagination." The scribes lower their gazes immediately. No one speaks, yet tension spreads through the terrace like cold water. Because everyone there understands something unspoken. The old priest did not deny the omen because he disbelieved it. He denied it because some signs are too dangerous to preserve. The senior scribe quietly alters the official record tablet. Instead of recording the vision, he writes, "Ritual completed without disorder, a lie pressed carefully into clay, and once written, perhaps destined to become truth." Lushera kneels silently again beside the basin, but he cannot forget what he saw, the hand closing around the city, and deep inside himself, he begins wondering whether the gods still speak honestly in Ur, or whether priests now silence even heaven itself. Far below the terrace, the city sleeps uneasily. Moonlight spills across rooftops and canals. Palm trees sway gently above courtyard walls. Dogs prowl through refuse piles, searching for scraps. Inside homes across Ur, smaller rituals unfold quietly away from temple oversight, because religion in Mesopotamia did not belong solely to great shrines. It lived inside households too. In whispered prayers, in bread offerings, in hidden fears. Near one narrow canal lane, a modest family gathers inside a cramped mud brick home no larger than a storage chamber in palace districts. The father is a reed worker. The mother spins wool for temple contractors. 2 children sleep beside the wall beneath patched blankets. Only one oil lamp burns. Its flame flickers weakly against cracked plaster walls. The mother kneels beside a tiny household shrine built into the corner floor. Nothing elaborate, just a clay figurine, a bowl, a few dried dates, a chipped carving of protective spirits. She pours a small libation of water slowly onto the earth floor, then places a fragment of bread beside it, offerings for household gods. Tiny acts of devotion repeated countless nights across the ancient world. The father murmurs a quiet prayer, asking for healthy canals next flood season. The mother asks protection for their children, simple hopes, nothing grand. Outside, wind rustles through nearby reeds. The older child shifts in sleep, then sits upright. Suddenly, the lamp flame flares, unexpectedly brighter. And for one brief heartbeat, the child's shadow stretches enormous across the wall. Not childlike anymore, horned. The outline resembles the divine crowns worn by Mesopotamian gods. The mother freezes instantly. Her breath catches. The horned silhouette flickers once against the wall, then vanishes as the lamp shifts again. Only ordinary shadows remain. Silence fills the room. The child blinks sleepily. What happened? The mother quickly rises and turns the lamp away. Nothing, but her hands shake slightly now. The father avoids looking toward the wall. Ancient people understood shadows differently than modern minds often do. Darkness carried presence, meaning, possibility, and horned crowns belonged to divinity. Or worse, the mother kneels beside the child quickly. "You must not speak about what you saw. I didn't see anything." "Good." Her voice is too fast, too tense. The child notices. Children always notice fear. Outside their small home, canal water laps softly against stone embankments. The city breathes beneath moonlight, and somewhere beyond human sight, stories continue spreading through Ur like smoke. Back atop the ziggurat terrace, the ritual concludes uneasily. The priests extinguish incense bowls, one by one. Scribes wrap damp tablets carefully in cloth for storage. The older priest, Enmendara, dismisses the attendants, yet the younger priest remains kneeling beside the basin, still staring into dark water. The older man approaches quietly. "You are troubled." Lushara lowers his gaze. "I know what I saw." "No," the senior priest says calmly. "You know what?" Fear suggested. The younger priest hesitates. "Then why erase it?" The older priest studies the moon overhead before answering. "Because cities survive through certainty." The answer chills Lushara more than the omen itself. The senior priest continues softly. "If priests announce doom every time foam twists strangely, civilization collapses into panic. But what if the omen was true?" Enmendara's face hardens. Truth is not always useful. Silence settles heavily between them. The younger priest suddenly understands something frightening about power. Sometimes the guardians of order protect the city not through honesty, but through controlled illusion. The old priest walks away without another word. Lushara remains beside the basin alone. The water surface has gone perfectly still now, yet in his mind the hand remains, closing slowly around Below the sacred district, whispers continue spreading through the city, especially about the vanished priestess. Her name changes depending on who tells the story. Some claim she descended willingly into sacred caves beneath the temple. Others insist demons dragged her into the netherworld after forbidden rites. A few whisper something far more dangerous, that she questioned the authority of senior priests and disappeared shortly afterward. No records confirm any version, which only makes the story stronger. In taverns, laborers speak carefully about her between drinks. In servant quarters, women whisper the tale beneath blankets. In market stalls, traders exchange rumors while pretending not to. Every version differs, yet all share one common thread. Someone wanted her forgotten. Inside the temple archives, senior scribes quietly remove certain tablets from public shelves. References disappear. Names fade from inventories. Records become incomplete. A junior archivist notices immediately, but says nothing, because scribes understand survival better than most. In memory belongs to whoever controls the tablets, and tablets can vanish. Near the canal districts, the former watch captain Anadam walks his patrol route beneath fading moonlight. He still carries the truth of the broken granary seal within him. The thief's words repeat endlessly in his thoughts. The city will soon belong to different gods. He does not know what that means. Political factions? Religious unrest? Madness? Yet tonight, every strange detail feels connected somehow. Corrupt records, hidden shipments, vanished priestesses, broken statues, false omens erased from tablets. The city feels like a wall, developing cracks beneath fresh plaster, still standing, but weakening. Enatum pauses beside a narrow bridge overlooking black canal water. Moonlight ripples softly across the surface. For one brief instant, he imagines he sees movement below, a shape beneath the water. Watching upward, he grips his spear tighter. Then the ripples settle. Nothing remains. Exhaustion plays tricks at this hour, or so he tells himself. Back inside the tavern near the western canals, the brewer Lugal Eden checks the strange fermentation barrel once more before dawn preparations begin. The foam has risen higher again, almost overflowing now. He mutters curses beneath his breath. Spoiled grain, means lost income. Yet, as he approaches, he notices something unsettling. The foam pattern resembles fingerprints pressed into mud, long curved streaks, like something reaching upward from inside the vat. The brewer steps back instinctively, then immediately feels foolish. Fermentation, heat, nothing more. Still, he seals the barrel tightly and leaves it alone. Outside, the moon slowly begins descending westward. The deepest part of night has passed, but dawn still feels far away. Across people drift uneasily through sleep. Dreams spread through households like invisible rivers. Dreams of water, dreams of collapsing walls, dreams of unseen hands reaching downward from dark skies. And perhaps this is how fear truly moves through civilizations. Not loudly, quietly, from whisper to whisper, from ritual to ritual, from dream to dream. The great city of still stands magnificent beneath the stars. Its granaries remain full. Its priests still chant. Its scribes still write. Its kings still rule. Yet somewhere beneath the sacred order of things, uncertainty has begun breathing, and in the night of the city both remembers and erases, depending entirely on whose hands hold the stylus. The moon rises. The city remembers. By the time the moon reaches its highest place above the city feels like a held breath, not silent, never silent, but suspended, as though the streets, canals, rooftops, shrines, taverns, archives, granaries, and sleeping households all wait together for something unnamed to pass through the darkness before dawn arrives. The Euphrates glimmers beyond the city walls like black metal beneath moonlight. Canals carry silver reflections through narrow districts. Palm leaves sway softly above mud brick courtyards. Temple fires burn low atop the terraces of the ziggurat, and over everything the moon god watches. The people of do not see the moon merely as a distant object in the sky. They see presence, authority, witness. Nanna looks down upon contracts and harvests, upon thieves and kings, upon lovers whispering beneath rooftops, and scribes pressing laws into clay. Nothing escapes the moon. Tonight especially, the city feels aware of being observed. Inside the temple archives, the senior scribe Ibisuin remains awake long after younger scribes have drifted into exhausted silence. Only a few lamps still burn. Their flames bend gently whenever warm wind creeps through narrow ventilation slits in the mud brick walls. The archive chambers smell thick with damp clay, old reeds, lamp oil, and dust that has rested undisturbed for generations. Thousands of tablets surround him, lives stacked upon shelves, empires reduced to records. The disputed grain contract rests before him once more, the altered wedge mark still visible beneath flickering light. Tiny, almost meaningless, and yet not meaningless at all. Ibisuin studies it carefully, one final time. His fingers ache badly tonight. The joints swollen from years of work. He remembers being a child when he first entered temple schools. The endless repetition, the endless copying, wedge after wedge after wedge pressed into wet clay until language itself became labor. Most students failed. Some fled. Some returned to farming. Some simply vanished into ordinary lives. But Ibisuin remained, because somewhere deep inside himself, he believed writing mattered, not merely for kings, for civilization itself. Without records, cities forget who owes grain, who owns land, which canals flood, which gods receive offerings, which laws prevent vengeance from swallowing entire streets. Empires always appear eternal while standing. Only afterward do people realize how fragile they were. He extinguishes the lamp. Darkness swallows the archive halls immediately, yet the tablets remain, silent beneath centuries waiting to come. Outside the walls of dawn still hides beyond the horizon. The marshlands shimmer beneath moonlight. Reeds bend in warm wind. Jackals move through distant grasses. And somewhere beyond human sight, history continues gathering itself. Because the people inside do not know what we know now. They do not know their city will one day fall, that empires will shift, that languages will fade, that the great ziggurat will become ruins beneath open desert skies. They cannot imagine archaeologists brushing dust from their tablets thousands of years later. They only know tonight, only the breathing city around them, only the moon above. 5,000 years ago, in the city of the night did not sleep. It remembered scribal tablets pressed carefully into wet clay, the bitter taste of barley beer shared between exhausted workers. The cautious footsteps of the night watch beneath sacred walls. The servant's hidden prayer whispered in forbidden language. The mother watching her child dream beneath moonlit rooftops. The vanished priestess spoken of only in frightened fragments. The priest who saw a hand closing around the city. The merchant whose name balanced between loyalty and accusation. The brewer's strange foaming barrel. The cracked foot of the king's statue. Remembered all of it. Even the things powerful men tried to erase. And if you walk the ruins of today, if you touch the worn bricks warmed by desert sun, if you stand beneath the same moon that once watched over kings and laborers and scribes, remember this: the city never truly slept. It only watched. It only remembered. This narrative is inspired by archaeological evidence, surviving tablets, and historical knowledge of Mesopotamian life during the third dynasty of Some characters, scenes, and dialogue have been dramatized to bring the night of to life.